really quick, the book is for the House of Sharing, which, if you don't know, they help the comfort women who were sexual slaves of the Japanese army during World War II. So if you don't buy a book, it means you support sexual slavery. And I think that sounds like really bad about you, so I think you should buy a book. So I'm coming home one night, a few weeks ago. I'm alone, pretty drunk, as you are. And I'm standing on my porch, trying to figure out which of my 2 pockets has my keys. And I happen to just look up in the sky and I see something really weird. Stars. Not just a couple stars, mind you, the entire fucking Big Dipper. Now, as anyone who lives in Seoul knows, a night when you can see a couple stars is pretty rare. And a night when you see an entire freaking constellation, that's like finding a white elephant in the Thai jungle or an Ajumma without a perm. It's pretty double rainbow special. And like the double rainbow guy, I was kind of thinking, what does it mean? But not in terms of like the mundane climatology or why my eyes can pick up the light of stars that died a million years ago. But why did I notice immediately these imaginary lines that draw the Big Dipper or, you know, the plow or Satraptashi if you're from India? Like, why did I see that pattern so quickly? And it turns out that the reason I could see this pattern so clearly is that our ancestors, a long, long, long time ago, were really good at making patterns, and they were scared of panthers. So our hairy forefathers and foremothers, eons ago, were walking through the grasslands of Africa, and they heard a rustling in the grass. And some of them thought, "Panther!" and they ran the hell home. But the rest of them thought, oh, it's just the wind, or it's a bunny, or they didn't know what it was. They just stood there picking their nose for a few minutes. And most of the time they were fine. But every so often, it was a panther. And they got eaten. But the ones that ran away got to have more children. And so they told their children, when you hear a rustle in the grass, run away, because it's a panther. And they told their children, when you hear a rustle in the grass, run away, because it's a monster. And they told their children, when you hear the rustle in the grass, run away, because it's the right and moral thing to do. And they told their children that once upon a time, Goofus and Gallant were walking through the grasslands, and the angry voice of the gods bellowed over the world. And Gallant, who was moral and pious and always ate all of his broccoli, ran home to placate the anger of the gods by sacrificing goats and his firstborn son and fruit bats and breakfast cereals, and made the gods happy again. But Goofus stood there and bellowed mightily, "Why should I bow down before the gods? For it was I who slayed the mighty wildebeest and feasted upon his entrails, and it was I who..." Whereupon the mighty panther demon sprung forth from the grass and devoured him whole. So in the tradition of our panther-fearing, pattern-making ancestors, I'm going to tell you a few minor points from my life and draw some imaginary lines of the constellation of how I lost my religion. Star number 1. Father Joe walks into my 6th grade class at St. Pius X Elementary in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with a collection basket in his hand. The tabernacle, he says, has grown dingy and dirty and needs to be recoated in gold. Now, for those of you who are not Catholic, a tabernacle is a special box where you put the consecrated Eucharists after Mass. Now, a Eucharist is a little snack bit that has been magically transformed through transubstantiation into the body of Christ. Now, not just symbolically, the body of Christ, mind you, the actual body of Christ. And this is a point of fanatical difference between Catholics and Protestants that thousands or millions of people have died fighting over for centuries. And our tabernacle at St. Pius X Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, needed to be covered in gold again. And Father Joe wanted the students to pay for it with their ice cream money. Now, we were a little dubious because, one, we had no intention of giving away our quarters that we needed to buy orange push-up pops. And secondly, our homeroom teacher, Sister Anna Lee, had made the mistake of showing us a movie called The Shoes of the Fisherman, which was this old 70s movie about a pope who stops nuclear war by selling off the Vatican's treasures to feed the starving masses of China. it makes sense in context, but trust me. So Father Joe, when he asks us to give away our money to cover a box in gold, the students in my class looked at me because I'm kind of our resident theologian. I had written a book report on the Confessions of St. Augustine, and I drew little crosses and fishes on my homework, and I knew how to spell transubstantiation. And so when he asked, are there any questions, I raised my hand as the representative of my classmates, and I said, Father, why do we need to cover something in gold? Wouldn't we be better using that money to feed the hungry and house the homeless and clothe the naked and do other good things? And he stood there for a minute chewing on his pedophile mustache, and he really was a pedophile. And finally he answered, people need symbols. The glory of the physical church will inspire people to the glory of the intangible God. But even as sixth graders, we could see that was a bullshit answer, and he knew that it was. Okay, star number 2. I'm sitting in a jail cell in Sand Springs, Oklahoma, and I've already done my push-ups, and I've thought about all the scenes I could remember from Oz on how to make a shiv, so I could stab my ex-girlfriend's brother as soon as I saw him again. Now, they put me in the isolation cell because I was too clever to be left with the other conspirators in our grand scheme that we had been arrested for. And they thought I would concoct some story to help us get out of it. It's my girlfriend's brother had this ingenious scheme with his hoodlum friends to photocopy $5 bills and use them at McDonald's. And he had blackmailed my girlfriend and I to drive him there because he had already got his license suspended because he had caught us breaking the 7th commandment earlier in the day. And so we drove into McDonald's and he spent the money, and immediately the cops sprang upon us because they had spent all of their counterfeit money at the same McDonald's on the same day. So they arrest us, and I'm sitting in this jail cell waiting for the Secret Service to come and interrogate us. And I've already done my push-ups, so I've already tried to figure out how to make a shiv. And I think I need to pray. And I don't have a rosary with me or anything, but I remember all the 67 prayers of the rosary. So I kneel down, and I do the Apostles' Creed, and the first Our Father, and the first 3 Hail Marys, and the Glory Be, and the next Our Father, and then 10 Hail Marys in the beginning, and then the Glory Be, and the next Our Father, the next Glory Be, the next 10 Hail Marys, the next Glory Be, the next Our Father. And the third decade of the Hail Marys, I started thinking, okay, wait, God is omniscient. He knows everything, and He's always known everything from the beginning of time, so He knew this was going to happen. And He's all-powerful, so He meant it to happen. Because if He didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't have happened. But it did happen. So maybe He wants it to happen. And if I pray that the thing stops happening, am I circumventing His will? And if I'm circumventing His will, does that mean I'm doing something wrong? But maybe He knew I wouldn't pray, and that He knew that outcome would happen. And I just got stuck in this loop of okay, God is all-powerful and all-knowing, then how did this happen, how this happened? And I never ended up praying that rosary because the Secret Service comes and they interrogate us, and they finally drop the charges against me a few months later because they realized that no one who was actually going to college would ever have done something that stupid. And I never finished that rosary. Star 3. I'm driving home from school at my senior year of university, and I've just failed my statistics for social sciences. And on the NPR, they're talking about the death of Phil Hartman, the comedian of News Radio, which was my favorite TV show at the time, who had just been murdered with along with his children in his Malibu home. And I was like, this is tragic. I don't know if it's as tragic as me failing my statistics final, but it's tragic. I pull in the house and I walk in the door, and almost immediately the phone rings. It's my doctor's office. They've got the results of the test they've been doing on my knee, and it seems that there's a growth on my knee, according to the receptionist. Like, growth. Does that mean there's cancer in my knee? I have bone cancer or something? And the receptionist is like, I don't know, you have to talk to the doctor about that. And I schedule my next appointment, and I'm like, holy crap, I've got cancer in my knee, and that sucks. And also, my favorite TV show is going to be canceled because my favorite movie star died, and our TV star died, and I failed my statistics major final, so that sucks. But then I get a page from my crush, this beautiful Canadian named Bernadette, And she's got these long strawberry blonde tresses that just go down way past her waist, and Rapunzel scream in shame, and these deep aquamarine eyes, and I loved her, and she loved me because I could be easily manipulated into doing whatever she wanted me to do. And she calls, and I think, okay, I would love to talk to her about all these things that just happened to me, and the obvious cancer that I definitely have in my knee, and the fact that I failed the statistics class and everything else. But she has news of her own, which she always does, and we don't ever really talk about my problems. And it seems that the reason that she had moved to America in the first place, namely that her father's dental practice and her mother's granite mine and this Mumbai orphanage they're funding and this shady Austrian businessman, the whole convolution had come falling home and they had to move again, probably to South Africa, so they were moving the next few weeks. And if only we had more time, surely that we would get really crazy and she would ravish me and it would be glorious. But she didn't have time, so I would never have that chance. And I was trying to convince her that, a few weeks is plenty of time for ravishing. Well, we can totally ravish each other in that time. But at the meantime, I've logged on the computer and AOL pops up, because don't mock me, AOL was the only game in town at that time. And the little "You've got mail" thing flashes. And it's a message from Shard of Glass 72, a woman I'd met several weeks before, shortly after she had moved from California. And we'd just been chatting innocently enough about mundane things like news radio, which was our favorite show. And she had said, "Hey, you want to come over?" And I did want to come over, and I did. And we had a little thing, and it lasted for 72 hours, and that was the end of that, I thought. But then I get this message, and it says simply, "I'm pregnant, you're the father, and I'm moving back to California. Star 4. On my way to Denny's at the highway, I passed by the Village Inn, which is much nicer and classier, but always had all the goss and tweakers and everything, so we never ate there. So I meet Shard of Glass 72 at the Denny's. A couple days before, she had sent me a message that read simply, "I had a miscarriage last night." And being Catholic, I've learned over my lifetime to carry guilt the same way people carry car keys, or maybe more like the Ajamas carry a basket full in the market awkwardly on your head. So I was feeling quite guilty about the whole pregnancy thing, and I had no desire whatsoever to have a baby because I had spent my entire teenage years raising my brothers and sisters because my mom and dad were too aloof and hating each other to actually raise the kids that they kept producing every few years. And I had been sick of diapers and throw up on my shoulders and people thinking that at 16 that baby is obviously mine. So I had no desire for it, but I had so much guilt on it. And then when she miscarried, I had this horrible feeling of, "Oh my God, thank you," and then, "Oh my God, that's horrible," at the same exact time. And so we meet at Denny's, and we talk for a little while, and we realize that we both had the same terrible parabola that many people have, where you meet, you have crazy sex, you have a baby, and then you figure out who you each other are. And you actually get to know each other. And we had done the exact same stupid parabola that everyone else does in that situation. But we sit there and we talk for a little while, and all the goths and tweakers that were supposed to be at Village Inn come in because they got kicked out of the Village Inn, so the goths are complaining around us about their militant nonconformism. And so we leave and go to the park and walk around the duck pond for a few hours. And we're just talking about everything and nothing and trivial things and all these things. And we look up at some point, and it's this gorgeous night. And there's all these stars, and we can see the edges of the Milky Way, even though we're in the middle of the city. And we eventually just lay down on the grass and just talk some more, look at the stars. And there's the Big Dipper, and there's Orion, there's Cassiopeia, and we're just looking up at them and talking about nothing. And at some point, the conversation grows quiet, and she says, "What do you think about God?" And as I'm looking up there, and I'm thinking all these things that I had gone through the last several years, and the Father Joe, and the tabernacle being covered in gold, and these people I met in university, and being friends with like, this atheist that wasn't raping children and devouring small animals, and all these people that I met, all these things that happened. And I'm looking up at the stars, and this dawn is coming, and as the dawn grows brighter and brighter, the stars disappear one by one. And she puts her hand in mine as I'm thinking about, what do I think about God? And as the last of the stars disappear into the dawn, I realized I didn't think about him anymore. And so we heard the rustle of the grass, and we didn't run away from the panther that wasn't there. Thank you.